All right, hello, welcome back. Happy Sunday, and welcome to the Game Dev Show. I'm here today with Zoltan to talk about his new game, Stellar Sovereigns, and a couple other interesting game dev stories. If you're here with us live or watching later, please tap the thumbs up button, drop a comment in chat or down below, and say hello and let us know how you're doing today. So, welcome, Zoltan. Thank you for coming here. I'm really excited to talk about and show what it is that you've been building. I think that people will be pretty interested in it. Let me say there's echo. Hopefully that's not the case from me. I guess we'll see. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming out here, and thank you everybody for. I hear it, for coming to join me. I see where it was playing in the background. I think. Never mind. Never mind. It's not me. Okay. Anyway, so how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Hi, Jason. And hi to all. My name is Zoltan. I am the developer of Stellar Sovereigns, this new upcoming Forex space strategy game. It has a turn-based gameplay as well as real-time combat. And thank you for having me, Jason.
Well, yeah, thank you for coming. I'm gonna just pop the trailer up and let it run through while we chat, so we can kind of just discuss things and let people kind of get a preview of it. There, let's see. Where's a good view, or it doesn't get shrunk down. There we go. So we'll let that play just in the background on a loop for a little bit and let people kind of get an idea of what the game's about. So I guess really quickly before we dive too much into it, do you want to just tell everybody briefly what the game, like a high level overview of what the game is, and then I want to start talking about how you got into building it, why you started building it, and all that stuff. But first, just a high level view of like what the game is, what the genre is, so people watching it maybe aren't familiar with it can understand, and then have a much better understanding once we dive into the details, which I think are going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to shut up now and let you talk.
All right, thank you very much. So Stellar Sovereigns is a Forex space strategy game. It is a sandbox strategy game where you get to build your empire, starting usually from one solar system, from one colony, and expand, explore, exploit all the resources and technologies that the game offers, and exterminate all the foes that you encounter. There are enemy opponent empires that you get to play against or befriend and then make alliances, or as well as menace forces that are three different factions that are always enemies of yours. And you get to fight them and you get to defeat them. And if you defeat them, you can actually steal their technologies, salvage their wreckages, and get better technologies that you can research just by yourself.
Wow, that sounds perfect. It seems like exactly the kind of game that I personally would want to play. I really love RPGs and space stuff, so it's kind of the exact culmination of the types of things that I like to play. So I'm super excited to dive back in. I was telling you earlier I wanted to play again this morning after seeing the big update, but I locked myself out. So somebody's asking if there are any aliens. I'm guessing there are lots of aliens in this game, right?
Well, indeed. The ways it works that you don't necessarily have a race or a faction that you pick, but rather you make it up yourself. There is a number of alien-looking faction portraits that you can pick from. And the vessels themselves and the fleet sets that you can pick during when you're starting the game are all looking different. So in many ways they are alien to one another, as well as the menace forces. They look one of the most alien compared to you, because these are one of them the pirates. Well, those are not very alien. However, the sectoids, they are these bug-like creatures, as well as the machine AI, which is an ancient remnant force that is looking very futuristic and has some very neat technologies that you can gain from them. If you manage to defeat.
Like model types and characters did you put into the game, and what was that process like? It sounds like there's a big variety of stuff. Is it procedurally generated, or did you just get a bunch of art made? Did you make your own art, or how do you go about that process of creating all this stuff for all of these different armies and I guess galactic empires.
Well, indeed, there are a few of them, 3 playable fleet sets that you get to pick from, each one of them unique looking. I purchased most of them, well, in fact, all of them from the asset store. 2 of them are coming from one of the 2 main providers, CG Pitbull and MSGDI assets. The third one is what it's called, apologies, a kit bash that I was using to build the ships myself from, and that is coming from, let me just check, the Ultimate Spaceship Creator from Ebal Studios.
Nice. So I've used that one myself.
I actually, yes, I've seen it. Yes, indeed. And they are fantastic. It was a blast to build my own ships. I really loved the pre-made ones from the other 2 studios. However, it was a lot more fun to create my own from bits and pieces. It is unique in a way, Stellar Sovereigns is that you don't only have just a couple of ships per faction, but rather you actually have a number of capital class vessels and a number of escort class vessels that you pick, that you can build, and then each one of them has unique capabilities, or at least differ in significant ways from one another. And to that, I actually have each one of them have separate models that look alike to one another, but not the same.
Wow. It looks really cool for everybody who's actually watching and not just listening. The video of the trailer you should definitely go check out because there's a lot of cool stuff here. And I really love the fact that you were able to do this with a lot of the asset store spaceships and you got it all looking right. It looks good and cohesive together. And it's like those are some of the assets that really always excited me. I get on there. I have a ton of them. I bought tons and tons of those packs, and I'm always like, oh man, I want to make a space game with these things. There's so many of them. They're so different. Yeah, he can just envision the different things that all the spaceships should be doing. Exactly. So I'm very excited about this.
It is a great source of inspiration to me, to be frank. In fact, I have more ships, and well, I guess I believe almost purchased every ship package that can be bought on the asset store, and I plan to, in some capacity, use them for later content.
Yeah, I bet you're probably just like constantly, you see an asset and you got to fight the urge to go make that into a unit. Like, oh, that would be a cool station, or that would be a cool ship. I need to add a mechanic for that. I can
exactly. And then you realize that, the time, and then, it's just, you always fighting the urge to add more, as well as you want to finish the game. But since other games have shown it, like Stellaris, that just releasing a game, it doesn't have to be the end of the development process. And I do intend to carry on and add new content. I have a number of features that are already kind of worked on to a degree, just to see if I could add it in. And I really hope that after Steam release, I can actually work on them.
Yeah, I think that you definitely should. I like that with Stellaris. They've added a ton. It's been supported for quite a while, and
indeed,
I think changed
quite a while. So, I was at university still when they first got it out, and then it's still. Just now it's coming with a new expansion, if I'm not mistaken.
Has it been that long? Jesus.
For me, that wasn't that long, but indeed it was. Quite a. I would imagine the list goes like this for all the downloadable content for it.
Yeah, it's huge. So I just We've got a link for it in chat right now if anybody wants to go check the game out, grab it on Steam. And then you mentioned that it was up on itch before, right? So a lot of people have been playing this. Have you gotten a good amount of feedback from people?
Well, during the early access on itch.io, I have gotten some. I have a couple of people that continually looking at my updates and then giving me feedback. And in fact, many of the features that have been added in, especially quality of life features, were directly suggested by the people from itch.
That tends to be the best way to get I think feedback. You want actual players who are in there diving in and
Exactly.
complaining about things. Let them see it instead of your testers or your other developers who are used to like hitting all the shortcuts to get around the annoying things that they forget about. So that is
Sure.
definitely important. There was a question in chat. Let me scroll up. Actually, there were a couple questions in chat. So oh, yeah, there are a ton of questions in chat. Let's scroll on up and see where they started because there were some I wanted to ask. Let's see. All right, I've lost my questions now. Here's the first one I wanted to take on, which was this made in Unity? And if so, what technologies did you use?
Yes, indeed, it was made with Unity, and in fact, I believe the only reason that I was able to get it this far because of the engine. It is an excellent tool, and a lot of resources can be found on the internet, especially yours, Jason, because I have been watching your tutorials from day one. And what Unity technologies have I been using? Well, I don't exactly know what particularly they are interested in.
Probably like the
Basically,
rendering system. Are you using URP,
I
HDRP, or dots,
I
or
am
those types of
no.
things?
This game has been in development in 5 years, and back then when I started, I managed to do a couple of update transition to a newer version, but I stuck on 2019. So I don't have any of the HDRP or the newer pipelines sadly available.
Okay, but you probably have assets that are already set up for the standard pipeline anyway. So
Standard
yeah,
indeed. Yes, yes,
everything's
yes,
using that. And then I assume that
yes.
also means that you didn't need to switch to using dots. You're able to do this just fine with
No.
mono behaviors and scriptable objects.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, to be frank, this is my very first Unity project. By the time Dots was at the point where, well, to be frank, it's not that long ago when it really got to the point where, you could say you could use it, not just in beta. So yeah, by that time I was already pretty much done with the core gameplay and the things how were set up. So I never made any transition to that. No. To be frank, I dread it. I would love to. I would have very much loved to, because who knows what the capabilities could be gained. However, I done a couple of times the upgrade, and it was a nightmare. It broke left and right, everything, and not even just the code, because the code wasn't necessarily that much of an issue that you can find it, but visually there were things that went away that I really loved, and it didn't look anything like that anymore. So it's like, yeah, to me, as I said, I was aiming to finish the project, not to polish it in terms of engineering.
I think that's very important. You need to get it out, get it done, and you've done that, which is important. Yeah, I would definitely not recommend switching or doing anything like that when you're this far in. You're at this point. There's not a big reward there. Your reward is from getting this thing out, which I think is freaking awesome. By the way, if you're here with us live, please again hit that thumbs up button, and if you got questions, drop them into chat. There was another question, totally non-technical, but I want to take it because I
Mhm.
think it's important to answer questions from young people, especially. And it says, "Hi, can you tell me if 11 years old is good to start game development, or is it too young?" What do you think? I know what I think on this. Can you start doing game development at 11?
Yes, today, yes. Well, I don't know how old I was when I very first saw a PC game, and that was well, first was Warcraft One, and I played that one. However, not that long after I saw Age of Empire One, and that's not really much over the point. However, I saw the editor. That was the very first time the map editor. I didn't get to actually play with it because that was at a friend's place. However, when I first saw it, it immediately clicked for me. I'm like, the potential that you could make with an editor. So indeed, yes, I would suggest to start it as soon as you feel like it, because thanks to the technology and thanks to the resources available, there is nothing really that's stopping you from give it a try, and you're probably going to succeed to whatever degree that you to willing to go with to keep doing it until it gets to the point where you want it.
Yeah, I 150% agree. You should start now, start building things right away, and it'll pay off. It's better to start early. There's no reason to wait, especially now with the tech. I think maybe 20 years ago it was a lot harder. You had to learn C++ or maybe just do a little bit of modding was all you could do. But nowadays you can basically build a game even without writing any code. You can just drag and drop and start building it. And a lot of
Cool.
the 11-year-olds have already started doing a lot of the logic stuff for games and a lot of the game building inside of other games like in Minecraft and in Roblox, where they may not be writing code, but they're doing the same thing just in a way more tedious way. They just don't have the advantage of being able to write a line of code that does everything and generates their temple. They have to go place every single thing and then place every bit of the wire. It's like having to press space every single time, and
But this is gonna come handy when they learn how to do it in code and they realize, wow, this is so easy. And
I can drag the
before,
box and it just scales. Look at that. Like, whoa. It is great. Yeah. So I think you should definitely get into it as quick as
exactly.
possible. There was another question about the game. Is it multiplayer?
No. I really wanted it at the beginning. That was kind of my idea, yes. But unfortunately, that is beyond my capability. To be frank, I learned that because I was tinkering with it a bit, that I learned that testing it or just figuring out how it works, which again requires you to test it. It takes so much time, and sadly, that's the only thing that a developer really have in spare. So
Nope.
yeah, no, I stuck with a single player.
I think it makes sense too, because it's the kind of game where you can enjoy it completely single player. Adding multiplayer might make it a little cool, but isn't going to drastically change it or drastically improve the experience. And it's not the majority of the audience. Most of the people, 9 out of 10, are probably going to be playing single player. It'd be a different type of game, I think, if you go to multiplayer, um, or at least it's a totally different experience. So I don't think I think that's probably a good choice, at least for that. And then you build something else multiplayer later.
And I believe you really need the experience of making the game in order to turn it into multiplayer. So you have to kind of know it in advance how the game going to work when you're doing it and when you design the multiplayer aspect. And for me, that was a brand new thing. So I started out, learning Unity itself and then how to make whatever I wanted to make. So on top of that, multiplayer would have been
It's a lot
backbreaking.
more, and everything just takes more time. Like every single thing you do takes more time. You got two editors up constantly, and everything you debug is slower. So I'm with you. Stick with the single player there. So there's a question about the trailer, which I want to see if I can get it to play
Yes.
again without flashing randomly on the screen. But they're wondering if you did the trailer yourself or did you hire somebody to make the trailer? How is this done? Because it is a very pretty and nice. Oh, it's still doing that weird flashing. I have no idea why.
It's not. It's apologies. That's not a weird flash. It is a flash. or at least I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, it keeps going white randomly.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, it is. Although I don't know why it's so visible here when I'm watching it.
I think it's something in this YouTube player trying to play it back through the thing. It
could
stays up
be.
very long.
Yeah, but indeed there is. So to answer your question, I have done it myself because well, the thing was that I was thinking to hire somebody, but then I was really struggling to come up with a description of what I would like. Beside that, hey, make me a good trailer. And I was thinking that is probably not going to fly very well. Also, not necessarily, they might not necessarily even know what is make me a good forex strategy game trailer, which might be a different. You focusing on different aspects. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it myself. However, it's not my work only. I have purchased the template for the After Effect template that you can see, and well, the rest is me recording it and then doing the editing as you would do it in Shotcut. So, and the music is again obviously been purchased, and I'm just kind of trying to putting it together. And indeed, the Flash is part of it. So I don't know why is it so dominant right now, but it shouldn't necessarily
It
be.
wasn't when I watched it normally. It just seems to be
Yeah,
when
but
I'm
I see
screen
it now.
sharing
It's very bad. It's awful this way.
it.
Yes. It's yeah. So if it's a problem, I can actually take it down. By the way, I mean changing the opacity on it. So yeah.
It is definitely a nice trailer. It's really cool that you were able to do a lot of that with mostly After Effects or just using a template. That is neat.
Well, the After Effects is really this blue effects that you can see. The rest been all been done in Shotcut, because After Effects is I mean, if I would render it all at once there, it would take me forever just to render. Even the effects, the certain segments take me sometimes an hour to actually render it.
Now there was a question, are there gameplay videos? And I think this is partially showing gameplay. It's just kind of cut up really heavily. Are there any that are just kind of like a longer tutorial?
There is a channel called the Altron channel. I don't even know. I might gonna look it up, but it is a German a fellow who is doing videos about the game. I myself haven't uploaded anything yet, but I do plan to. But this was really just to finish the trailer for the game, so I can have a trailer for the Steam page itself. I myself haven't made any gameplay footage yet, but I do plan to have something. Although highly doubt that would be on Steam. It's probably just going to be on YouTube. There is a couple of shorter trailers, or not so much trailers, but rather showcases of on the YouTube channel itself that shows some of the features that I done, but not an extensive footage of gameplay from me anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you have a link to that YouTuber too,
I'm
I'd love
checking.
to just
I'm
drop it down
checking.
below and put it in
Yes.
chat so people can check it out. I do want to get into a little bit of technical stuff, but there was another question about the game specifically. How much will it cost? Do you have a price on it already?
I don't think it shows $25.
Okay, that seems like a very good price. Seems very cool. Okay, so let's if you're up for it, I kind of want to dive into some more technical stuff. And if everybody's
Sure.
interested in that, please hit the thumbs up button. There was one question that I think might be a good way to kick it off, which was about procedural generation.
Yes.
It says, I'm obsessed with procedural generation, and I see the star systems are done that way. Do you have any tips, tricks, or methods that you used for that? Anything that you did
Oh.
for procedural generation, or just lessons that you
Uh-huh.
learned doing procedural
Yes.
generation, things that went really well or really bad?
Well, interesting question. I have done two procedural generations. One is generating the actual shape of the star chart. But the game itself is in 3D. The star chart itself is in 3D, and I used a number of random distribution generators for placing, obviously, the locations of the stars. And there I had some parameters that were restricting it to a given area. When you start a game, you can actually have change these parameters yourself, like how wide and the width, and then the minimum distance in between solar systems, and then a couple of generator types, like clustered, spread out, small clustered. So this kind of generators. I myself found a number of random generators that did help with that distribution curve. Don't exactly recall. It was quite a while ago. For the solar systems, well, I am not an expert in any ways on procedural generation, but my approach was kind of coming up with rules that was taking input of, obviously, the seed of the particular solar system, and then picking items like the type of planet, the type of orbits, the type of asteroid, etc., that were pulled in, and then each head usually had, based on what type it brought in, had its own bit of a generator that was, again, picking from a sort of options of which object to actually place. I used some rules for basically how strong the radiation of the star itself, which determined, what type of a planets you kind of had closer to the star and further away. So you can have solar systems where every one of your planets are pretty much arid or frozen planets, because the star doesn't give out that much radiation. So you come up with your own kind of interpretation of a rule, and you try to apply that through your set of objects that you have available. I mean, that was my particular approach. I don't know if there's anything else that I could have done differently.
Oh, it sounds good, because I think it explains it in a way that that is relatable, because that's really what it comes down to. There are like all these. I think you can get into some really complex stuff and confusing things, and like maybe overly complex ways to generate things, but it really does come down to really just having some set of rules and making sure that you're creating things that match
Yes.
pretty much randomly or distributed however you've chosen in that set of rules. So that's really cool. I think it's one of the things that's fun to build, and it's really cool when you see it actually come in. Like you put the rules down and you start hitting the button and it starts generating.
Oh,
Oh, that's cool. That's fun.
Oh, that
Bam.
was amazing. And then later was an annoyance when I was looking for a nice solar system that I wanted to showcase, and I couldn't find one. I mean, that was because that was already in the game, so it wasn't based on my seed. It was based on the seed of the game, and I was like, oh, can't find one that exactly in that kind of a way, But yeah, indeed, it is really fun. It is really fun to use procedural generation, and I don't think I would have wanted to do it any other way for this game, because building it one at a time is very tedious, and again, it just takes a lot of
And it's
space
really hard to
for
come
yourself.
up with something that's good doing that
Yeah,
versus just hitting the button until it looks great. And you're like,
exactly.
that is very cool. And it's a lot more fun. Did you find that it was a lot of work to do the procedural generation stuff? Did you have to do a ton of research, or was it really just like hey, I want to do this like clustering now. I'm going to go Google and see how to do a clustering algorithm and then kind of work that in. Was it pretty simple or was it really difficult, or how would you rate it?
It was pretty simple. I mean, again, I don't recall the particulars, but I do remember finding, I believe it is even on the asset store. I'm not entirely certain. We'll check it a bit later. There was this distribution random generator, effectively one class, if I'm not mistaken, and then you just gave it some value, and then it gave you back it because obviously you, as you know, the regular random generator it is a bit too uniform. So that's why I was using this distributor generator. So effectively, at the beginning, I only had to just generate a location in 3D space, which is again is not that complicated. But using this distributed kind of generator, you could add a bit of a shape to the generation. And after that, doing the clustering is effectively just again doing the simplest thing that you can come up with, which you create a smaller, pick a center point and then just generate around that, and then pick another center point that is far away enough from this one and generate around that. So the generator itself doesn't know that this is a cluster generation. It's just how you using it effectively gave you the result that you want. So it's fairly mundane, to be frank, after you realize that you don't need to complicate it as much, as long as you don't mind how you get the distribution. Just,
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people probably should be looking into and using that aren't. I think a lot of time what happens is they think procedural generation and then they think of a couple examples that are out there, like a No Man's Sky or something, where they're just generating these giant universes and there's tons and tons of stuff, and that's what they think of instead of the actual process is just that, and they've just scaled it up and scaled it up and scaled up that process. So it's pretty easy to do in your game, and it's something that not all games, but a lot of games should at the very least try and experiment with and see if it fits. There's a non-technical and then a much more technical question that popped up. I'd like to take real quick. The first was, is there a release date yet for the game?
Yes, indeed, the 15th of March.
So
I sent you the link for the channel. Yes, on the 15th of March, so not that long now.
That is very soon. So make sure you've wish listed it and be ready for that. I'm gonna pull this.
I much appreciate that.
Pull up this other channel. So this is the
Ultron.
the YouTube.
He is doing, yes. Yeah. But he's doing it in German though, so.
You can still watch the video. Just pop up the, maybe, does it have, let's see, closed caption? Oh, you're not available. That's a shame. No, but yeah, you can still watch the thing. So go through, check it out. Oh yeah, this is really cool.
And he and Jensen was also a great help in providing me translation, German translation for the tutorial section of the game. So they are and they are a great source of feedback and suggestions for improving the game itself. So they are really awesome guys.
I'm going to link the video and the channel so everybody can go hit like and subscribe. But can you explain just briefly what we're seeing on screen right here? What this part of the game is?
Yes, indeed. So this is the colony management menu of the game. And as you can see here, there's some population information and economic information. But really what you are dealing with here is on the left, the development. There is four sectors of development for each colony. The first one is industrial, which deals with the construction capacity as well as the mining of resources. The second is housing sector. The housing sector is effectively how much housing your colony have. As your population grows, you need to keep up with that population growth by providing funds for increasing the housing sector of each colony's capacity. Below there is obviously for agriculture, for the agriculture sector, and this is just food production for your population. And again, you need the necessary amount of foods for your people not to starve. When you don't have enough food, which can happen, in that case, your population starts to shrink. And in case of if you don't have enough housing, your population is capped at that level. And below that is the R&D sector, which provides research bonus toward your research projects that you do. There is a number of buildings that you can improvements that you can build for each sector, and these are specifically affecting a particular aspect of that sector. For example, you have what's it called? Suddenly I got dumbfounded. Anyway, so yes, indeed, that factory. The mega factory, for example, increases the colony's trade goods production by I don't know, I guess 50%. But you can also level it up a couple of times. So you get to choose only one kind of a structure, but that structure can be leveled up, and then specializing that sector's output. On the right, there is some governmental features. There is a colonial governor, which effectively takes care of all the developments on a colony. You can set the amount of funds that the governor has access to, and this funds is effectively coming from the income from the colony itself, or you can also provide a degree of additional aids from the budget of the empire. And it's cool because if you have lots of colonies, you might don't want to think every turn of how much housing, how much agriculture you need for every colony particularly. So you can just set the colonial governor to take care of that, and they'll let you know if the funds are not enough. You can still each turn manually increase it without any problem, because it's really only affected at the moment of the turn execution. Below that, there is a bunch of resources that you can exploit from a colony. There are resources that you mine. There are resources that are so-called luxury resources. They provide approval rating bonus toward your colony if you have it, if you exploited it in enough quantity relevant to the number of populations you have. Each colony's population grows continually. But the rate that they grow is highly dependent on environmental factors, approval factors, technological factors, and traits. All kinds of things can affect colony growth. But as they grow, you also need to make sure that you cater for their needs, housing, food, and work placements. That's what the industries are also for. So each sector provides a number of work placements, some number of jobs. And if they are working, then they provide you with money in terms of taxation. And they grew to pretty much indefinitely. However, at some point, the colony becomes a larger size, a new factor kicks in, and that's the crowding factor. So if a colony becomes overcrowded, that decreases the likelihood of growth. But then you can also start a new colony, because people that are at the colony, they're starting to be not happy to be there, so they effectively turn into pioneers. And then you can use the pioneers to load them up into colony ships and take them to new colonies. And then when you have a new colony and maybe you have excess housing available, you can even immigrate those pioneers from other colonies, making that colony allowed to grow over time. So these kind of things that you can take care of on that particular menu.
There's a ton. This is super exciting. You're not this, but it kind of ties up to this. I think this next question. Well, that was not the question that I was looking for about AI and stuff, because there's a lot going on. You've mentioned I don't know, like a dozen systems already tying in, not counting all of the enemy galaxies that have to, or empires that have to be doing their own things. So when you're putting this together, did you have performance challenges? Were there issues like, were you constantly profiling and fixing things, or did you come up with a good pattern that made it so that you could run this really fast on anything and it wasn't too bad? Or can you just talk a little bit about that?
Well, because it is turn-based, effectively you don't really have so much issues with performance. I come across with issues where I had to for when you open up a menu and you have so much data that they are working on. So I had to do some paging and etc. One, for example, there is a menu that when you just click, it opens up all the known planets that you explored. So you can easily pick one for your next colony effectively. And you can filter that list in various ways. There was a great deal of issue because it immediately became 300, 400 planets, and there I had to do some paging and such. Also, the trade menu, which again deals with trying to calculate all that information, because trade effectively is a chaining of systems across your empire with shipping lanes, and then calculating the current flow through, the capacities, how much is used and not, etc., etc. That was difficult to figure out how to iterate through all these loops. But because I say loops because the trade routes themselves can also loop, and then they can connect it with other trade routes from other systems. So that was a challenge to find recursive. I used recursion on that to actually loop through, because you kind of had to be fairly quick about it, because it happened at the very beginning of you opening the menu, and you don't really want the player to click on a button and then wait 2 seconds, which not a long time, but indeed it was really annoying. So this kind of stuff happened. I also have had and have again on my computer, sometimes I notice that when you open up the colony menu, because the colony can get quite big, what you saw there is actually a fairly small colony, but it can be quite big and tall as well. So there's a lot of buildings in there. So that's one of the reasons that just in case that somebody's computer doesn't necessarily like it, I made sure that immediately I rendered the image, but then I render it into a what's that called? Render texture, and then just shut down the camera. So you have live feed. There's a button there where you can go live feed and see the planet and see the transition from day to night cycle and back, and then the weather and everything that you like. Also, there is a kind of a dolly camera, so you kind of flying through the actual terrain over the colony, so, and it zooms in a bit and back. So that these things are there for if you like. But indeed, I was afraid that might be taxing on some of the computers. So I made sure that you only see just one frame, just in case. But then again, you can also view it if you
then
like.
You can hit the button to see it if your system's good, and
Yes.
if your system's not good, you're gonna know not to hit that button the next time, right?
Well, indeed, but then again, it's more of a fun for me, to see. It has no gameplay feature, but I still wanted to see how it works. But indeed, so these kind of things I come across. So, but otherwise, really everything happens in the turn execution process, including AI and all the calculations done, and that is not. I don't find it extremely long. It can take up to, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or something sometimes, but but then again, that only happens when you're doing the turn execution. So yeah, mostly, obviously, the things where I was really conscious about performance, pardon me, was regarding shaders. I mean, some of the effects, the volumetric nebula that kind of wraps around usually the play area, there I had to tweak the parameters to find that kind of sweet spot where it doesn't taxing the GPU too much. But otherwise, really, the only place where I've had to take care of performance is in the real-time combat, where obviously pooling and other techniques were kind of used to preloading, for example, making sure that which was at first I was like, so obviously I didn't do it that way. So the game in combat has a feature where you can actually send incoming fleets can join your combat. So when a combat started, fleets that come after you can come in and join in. And then obviously, silly me never did. But a simple solution: preload all the ships there at the beginning of the combat, and then you don't have this bump when when the ships actually have to come in. So this kind of stuff.
Okay, optimizing there. So it seems like a lot more on the rendering and stuff. And the cool benefit of it being turn-based is that the AI stuff, you can go as complicated as you want, and it's
Exactly.
still just a little thing saying, "Hey, the AI is thinking," and just like you would expect in a turn-based game, which is very very cool. I like it a lot. I like that idea, and I think that people probably underestimate how much visual optimization you still end up doing, and even in a turn-based game, because you want it to run good, and when you have a lot of capability, you also want to shove a lot of really pretty fancy things on there at the same time, and
Yes,
it's like a big balancing act. There
exactly.
was a question about your UI, and they're saying
Yes.
that it looks really appealing for having so much going on at once. Did you have anyone help you with the UI design, or did you do it all yourself, or is this all like a lot of feedback from users, or where did you come up with this?
Well, in terms of the design, as in what is where and how it has been laid out, as mostly me, but the asset itself has been purchased again from DFI Studios. That was a huge package of all kinds of the really all kinds of pieces for the UI, and then I just kind of put them together. I use Photoshop every now and then to change it to suit my needs, but otherwise, yes, yeah, it's been purchased. No, I did not hire anybody. Again, it is for a first-time developer, it is really hard to even tell to somebody what you would like. Let alone UI, especially in a turn-based game. UI is a continually evolving thing, so it looks totally, I wouldn't say totally different, but entirely not looking different from the very beginning. But indeed, a lot more stuff there that would have been constantly hiring people to, somebody to do it for you again and again. So instead, I purchased a fairly big asset package, and then that was what I'm using even today. Not that long ago, I just made a couple of new buttons using it.
Well, it looks great. Did you get a lot of feedback from early users too on the UI and where things should be? Were they helpful there, or was it mostly just like you already kind of knew where things should go? Or
Well, I wouldn't say I knew. I just tinkered with it until it kind of got there. No. In terms of that, no. More like functionality, indeed. Functionality, yes. I got a ton of feedback for particular features that they wanted. For example. One of the things that was a latecomer, even though that now thinking it's obvious, that you can deal, because you were always able to link vessels with a fleet when you are in orbit of a system where there is another vessel in the reserve. However, there was never a feature that you could delink it and put it back to a reserve for you to be able to swap it. And Ultron himself actually suggested it because he really wanted to split the first fleet that you starting with into the 3 vessels that you're starting with, so he can go 3 different ways to go and explore. And indeed, to me, like, of course. And then later on also came the suggestion for scuttling a ship if you didn't want it anymore, which again was like obviously should have been there, but it never occurred to me. So yes, feedback was incredibly crucial to make the game not what it is, but to make it more fun, more user-friendly and useful for the player. Because to answer your questions, everything is as I wanted it, but all because I kind of had a vision for it, although obviously limited by what I could come up with in terms of the available assets, but it is everything as I kind of wanted. But the features were all coming from left and right.
Well, I think everybody seems to agree that your UI was great. Actually, there was a reply. Oh, right here about how well you put it together, and I think it does show like the
Thank you very much.
care and the
Much
love for it,
appreciated.
and probably the constant tuning. I'm sure you moved things around a lot until it felt just right. But it looks clean and it looks like things are in a logical sense and it can make sense of it. I really like that UI, especially given the amount of stuff there. There was a question about the amount of stuff that I think a lot of people will probably be interested in, which was that there seems like a lot of data to track. And tell me if that's wrong, but it does seem
Oh
like you got a
yes,
ton of data. And they're wondering if
yes.
you had difficulties with saving and restoring game state, or did you come up with a simple system? Did you just use an asset? You design stuff so that everything is in some data class, and you made it. How did you go about that?
Well, probably in the wrong way at the beginning, for sure. Well, saving came later, which now I know that you should always start with the very, very first time you start a project. Even if it just only saves, I don't know, maybe the scene name or something. But yes, it came later. It came later and came so much later that I already had space combat done. I already had pretty much the game done. I mean, the main aspects like the tech tree and colony management, fleets, etc., etc. And so I purchased an asset, the Easy Save asset, and I was using that to serialize all my data. I used custom types, and it took me a while to took me a while to rebuild everything from the saved data back in the order as they were supposed to be. And yeah, well, that was a bit of an hassle, which again would not have been if I started from the get-go, because then it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious for you that okay, this is something is not correct right now, rather than when everything is loaded and then you have to figure out why are things not in the way as they're supposed to be. Like for example, the persistence of the colony layout and the colony buildings and whatnot was for a long while not really persisting. So yeah, that came again later. But that's all my fault, not starting it at the beginning. So yeah, save first, and then just to get into the habit of when you finish a free feature, a new class, a new object that you are working with, that you added in, just make sure that you, before you say that I'm done with this particular thing, you have the save thing down there done, usually at the end of my class, as well as the load class, and there you go. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's way easier if you start thinking about that stuff near the beginning, right? Not at the end when you realize like, oh, now I need to transform all this data that's spread around on all these objects into something that I can serialize and save. If you do that early on and you just get that data separated out and start saving it, or you build yourself a little save system, then you'll want to separate that data out. And then every time you do it wrong, you go, oh, I should just split this data off real quick. And then I can make it easy to save or mark it as whatever way that I need to make it easily savable. So yeah, couldn't recommend that more. I think it's a
Yeah,
very, very
exactly.
good piece of advice. There's a question from Larry. Does this game have an ending? So can you win? Can you defeat all the other empires? How does that happen?
Yes, indeed. Where the game is kind of you have to defeat all your opponents, but who is an opponent? In that case, it becomes a question of if you made an alliance with somebody, that they are no longer an opponent. So more alliances that you can make, less enemies you need to defeat. It is only 5 opponents that you can have maximum, so 6 of you in the game. It is smaller than, let's say, Stellaris, but yeah, so it is to the death effectively, or you can have a diplomatic victory by having everybody as a friend.
Nice. So you can win 2 different ways. This is very cool. I'm just excited to kind of get back in and play. Like I got to play a while ago, and I'm just gonna jump back in this morning, and I missed my chance. So I'm hoping to play a bunch tonight and tomorrow. Gonna experiment and probably send you a couple complaints and ease
Sure.
ease of use features.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. I'm already working on a number of bug fixes, to be perfectly frank. So, yeah.
That's fine. So let's take 1 or 2 more questions real quick. There's one
Sure, of course.
about the spaceship editing, and that's something I don't
Yes.
think we've really talked about, right? They're
Yeah, no.
wondering, did you use any tools to make it easier to add stuff to? Well, first, 2 things. Let's talk about spaceship editing in game and how you did it. So, did you use anything external for like dealing with the data? For dealing with your internal stuff. I know like one of the things I always tend to use is Odin and Specter just because it makes it easy for me to make menus and stuff. And then also I'm really curious, like outside of the parts where you put the data in, how you went about the spaceship customization and how you kind of designed and built that system. But first, were there any editor things or any like
Yes, Odin.
extensions or things that you used that made it easier?
Yes. Well, Odin is serializing every data that I kind of have. Uh, when the game loads, effectively, all the data is kind of turned into things that I can actually see in the editor. So if there's a save coming to me, I can actually go in and literally I don't need to look at the game itself. I can just look at the data structure in the game, and that is all serialized with Odin. I don't think I could have done it any other way, although I'm sure there are ways to do so. But again, I was like, I need this tool, so I bought it and then immediately used it. And ever since, I'm using it left and right. But for the data, for the vessels themselves, they have a kind of a template. For each vessel has a template load out effectively. So which is responsible for knowing which mesh needs to use, which particular game object it has to spawn in. And all the various textures and such are all kind of hooked up to that template, and then that template kind of drives the whole thing. But when it comes to customization, when you're playing the game itself, you're effectively just changing the slot IDs for whatever slot that you are changing, weapons, modules, missiles, hangars, etc. And then those again refer to another template somewhere in the database, and then those are the base values, which again always get updated with all the new stuff based off all the upgrades and upgrades that you're getting from your traits and the technologies that you researched.
Okay. That sounds exactly how I would set the data up. So I was just curious to see if you had something different. It sounds like almost a one for one. And Odin too. Like I said, I use that on anything where I've got large amounts of data. Find it to be super handy. I just dropped a link in chat for anybody who's not sure what Odin is. It's the Odin in Specter one specifically because that has the serializer. But did you use the validator by chance too? I know it just came out kind of near the end of your life cycle. Is that something you got a chance to play with?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
Well,
no, no,
it's
no, no. I'm sure not. No.
yeah, it's a very cool tool, but it's I think probably it's something that people are using in slightly bigger games. Something like this might make sense for it, but not in this stage of development. It's more like I'd put it in earlier on before you're about
Yeah.
to release, not last second. But it's just for making sure that things are good. I was curious about that because I know a lot of people that use the inspector specifically, especially for my
It's very
editor
good.
windows, dealing with all that kind of data. But also, I like that you're using it for the serialization stuff too. That's pretty cool. Were there any other things, I guess, specific about the game that you just want to talk about or want to share that you think were really cool in the development process or interesting that people should know about or think about if they're trying to make their own game?
Well. To me, one of the thing that was a kind of an achievement is the tech tree, or rather the tech forest that I created, which was inspired by Sword of the Stars. I don't know if you have played it. They had these. Many tech trees as opposed to just one giant one, so that was really cool, where I could really I really had a blast to create all kinds of weapon types, and then for each one of them having a minimum three tiers of them, and then the upgrades and whatnot. So my tech tree is fairly big, and then the researching process is also kind of unique in a way that, well, not so much unique, because same as I guess Stellar Sovereigns, where you're paying for research, so you're not getting research for free. So when you researching, you actually have to pay for all the effort that you put into it. And yeah, so that tech tree provided a lot of content for the game, because one of the aspect of this game, one of the feature is effectively fighting these neutral enemies, because well, the war obviously is a goal for defeating other empires, but you don't want to wait 100, 200 turns before you actually get to fight anything. But then again, it's not much of a fun if just the same kind of lasers and pitch happening in this every time. So I had made about, I believe, 6 or 7 tech trees that are all weapons, and each one of them have a minimum 3 weapons and then 1 or 2 upgrades for them, as well as a number of modules that you can retrofit your vessels with, which is again another feature of the game, that as opposed to you designing one particular template or something, you building a ship that already has its default loadout, and then you can retrofit it, which is very interesting, because this way even your very first capital ship that you picking can be as powerful as you want it at the very end of the game if it survives, because you can just change all the weapons to your liking as you gaining the technologies. And so yeah, to me that was really cool that I managed to actually create that many technologies, and they are all fairly unique as well. So that was something that I'm proud of.
Yeah, that is really cool. Did you find that to be more of a coding technical challenge or more on the design side? Is it more like
Oh,
coming up with here are the fun, interesting parts, or was it building the system or implementing each one of those ideas that you had? What was the hardest part there?
well, the tech tree, just the tech tree is an enormous challenge, because obviously you have all kinds of technologies there when it comes to the game. So that was a engineering challenge. Well, yes, indeed, as well as well, for the weapons, and modules, which usually come with an ability of sort. Indeed, that was something of a challenge, because every one of them is supposed to be unique. So I don't know. I believe I have maybe 6 or 7 different projectile classes that deals differently. Either applies a buff, again, then you have a buff class that deals with that, or a debuff, and a different type of damages, and then deal with all that. So that was indeed a lot of coding, a lot of testing, a lot of headache, just to make a projectile fly in the kind of way that you want, let alone the missiles, that when you would like them to be like doing it like this, sidewinders and this kind of stuff. So yeah, that was each one of them individually was a job to do. So yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to do all the visuals for them, the particles and the visual upgrades along the way. I'm sure there's definitely a ton there. It's very cool though. Well, I'm excited, like I said, to get a chance to hop in tonight and play once baby and the wife fall asleep. That's my plan tonight. don't let her find out. She'll catch me grab my laptop and playing all night. But I'm hopeful that everybody else can get in there soon too. So go wish list it if you haven't already. I just re-linked it in chat, I think, a couple times, and yeah, get signed up. Go check it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you're into space and RPGs and this kind of game, which is definitely my type of game. I'm terrible at first-person shooters. I like them too, but I'm just terrible at them. So this is much more my style. So I'm super, super excited. So thanks again for just talking to everybody about this and sharing your experience. And I hope we may do this again sometime too. Just talk even more in depth on specific coding things and just random things that you found interesting. I think people will probably have a lot of questions. It's always nice to be able to talk to somebody who's built a game, just recently released it, and going through the experience, the pains and the problems that pop up that you don't think about until you're actually releasing a game. And also getting to see all of the excitement. So you're releasing on March 15th, you said, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, that's going to be a very, very fun and exciting day for you. We'll definitely have to talk again before then
Thank
too,
you, Jason.
and start sharing and promoting it. Any chance you're going to be at GDC this year?
Sorry?
The Game Developer Conference that's coming up in March? I assume not, because most people aren't, but I figured it's only 5 days after your release, so I would check.
No. You mean that's the one that is in America?
Yeah, it's the one in San Francisco.
Yeah. Now, because I got an invite of sort, but indeed, that would be far away from
Yeah,
me.
it is definitely a bit of a trip. It's just a short drive for me, so I figure I just check. I'm trying to check with everybody to see who I might run into and might be able to meet up with. So to find out.
I would love to. I would really love to, but no. That's just too far for me, especially right now.
So it looks like I'm not the only one that really likes this game, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
A lot of other people are very interested. If you're interested in this kind of stuff too, you want to hear more, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and share stuff. And also, I forgot to mention this thing. The boot camp's still going on live. We actually had a call earlier with an expert of talking about indie game development right before the show. That's what made me a little bit late. I kind of scheduled with not enough time in between and needed a quick little break. So if you're interested in that, there's a link down below. Descriptions all on there. But the next lessons are coming out tomorrow morning, probably around 8 a.m. PST. Whenever I get ready and hit the button tomorrow morning. So it'll be 11 through 20. We're dive into local multiplayer, new input system, data persistence, saving and loading, and a whole bunch of other things. There's whatever the 10 lessons of different stuff that are all tied together. So you can go check that out. But also go grab Stellar Sovereigns, go hit the wish list, get ready for it, start watching the videos, and let me know what you think. If you want to hear some more about this, you have specific questions about the game, email me. I will forward them over, and maybe we can talk about them live on stream again and just dive into some more details for everybody. So
Thank you very much, Jason. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks again for coming out, and thanks everybody for watching. Please hit that button, and we'll see you next week, or maybe even sooner. Bye.
Bye, guys.